Hello, everybody, and welcome to another one in our series, Breaking Down Barriers. My name is Chris Igwe, and these videos are inspired by my book, Breaking Down Barriers, my journey from a small African village to the world stage, Breaking Down Barriers. I take a chapter, I give you some insights and thoughts, and in the book, it gives you my philosophies, my ideas, and then I share a little story in the book as well. So if you want to get a copy, feel free to check it out. But I just want you to think about the topics that we discussed and include them in your own life and just see where are the touch points for you in terms of the impact that that can have on your own life. Well, today the chapter that we're going to talk about is trust your intuition. Trust your intuition. Now, I don't know about you, but as we grow older, as we grow up even, we tend to use less of what we've learned when we're younger, and it disappears into nature and we become these different creatures and sort of ignore our past, those skills that are inherent in us when we are born. And we do have an innate ability to be intuitive. And we're going to spend the next few minutes just touching on it. And I hope that it'll inspire you to go away and think about some other thoughts for yourself and see how that might impact your life. So the first thing is, what is intuition? Well, intuition, for example, could be a hunch. It could be a gut feeling. It could just be that, I don't know what, je ne sais quoi, as the French say. There's just something there. It could be a sixth sense. Intuition is something which actually, it's nothing to do with logic. And that's where it falls down, or that's where it becomes a challenge for us as individuals, because we always, especially if you're like me, qualified and trained as a civil engineer, so you have this sort of approach where you have to have a logical approach to come to a solution. Well, intuition is totally the flip side, or totally different from that. It has nothing to do with logic. And indeed, if we look at it, it's the ability to understand something without a conscious reasoning. How you understand something without a conscious reasoning. In other words, if I say to you, I'm holding something here that is black, for example, and I'm holding something here that is white, you will say, yeah, absolutely, black and white. It's logical. We wouldn't call it green or what, purple or anything else. Your brain says, that's logical, that makes sense. That is black and that is white. But intuition is different. Intuition has nothing to do with that. It is indeed that hunch, that gut feeling, that sense that there's just something right or not right about the decisions and choices that you're going to make. What about something like you look at somebody's face, or they're telling you something and somehow you know that they're not telling the truth. Maybe they're even lying. But because they've become so good at it, they can actually get you into thinking that what they're saying is the truth. But there's something there in the back of your mind that goes, nah, there's something not right here. That person is not telling the truth. But you don't know it from the words that they're sharing. You don't know it from the way they're standing or looking at you. There are people who are called pathological liars. In other words, they don't know how to do anything but lie. It's just their nature. And sadly, it's a very strong nature and a deep one. But sometimes you can tell, even with someone who is sort of a professional liar, as it were. There are alarm bells that go off. Your hair stands on end. And you start to think, there's something just not right here. So that's intuition. Now, very often, I do want to kind of address another myth, as it were. And one of these myths are that women are more intuitive than men. Now, I don't have any studies or research that I've particularly gone to look at. You can do that if you feel like it and let me know what your discoveries are. But we have this feeling or this view that women are more intuitive than men are. Now, the one thing that I would say is that I would tend to agree that women generally are, because they allow themselves just to be. And they've got this extra heightened awareness, which perhaps comes, in my opinion, from whether they're mothers or not mothers, but there's just that they're created in a way that intuition seems to flow more naturally through and for them. But what I want to say to you is that men are equally intuitive. The only thing is that we have either suppressed it or don't use it as much. And what I want out of this video is that you say to yourself, I want to develop my intuitive skills, because it is a skill and it's one that is very rarely used, or used less and less. And it could be literally between life and death. Knowing that if you went this way or went that way, that could change your life in some way. Maybe a job, to bring it back to something a little bit more mundane, as it were. But you go for a job interview, or even you're interviewing, as I have for many, many years, for decades. I've interviewed people. And in the interview process, I just know that somebody is not quite telling the truth, or they're exaggerating the truth even more. Is there anything on their CV that says different? No. Is there anything that they have said that necessarily makes me feel that way? Possibly. But maybe it's just my listening to them. And that's one of the things that intuition does. It allows you to listen more carefully, more deeply, not only to what is said, but what isn't said. And I pride myself in my ability to listen to things and interpret things that haven't been said, because over the decades, I've improved my intuitive skills. It's very, very important. The stronger they become, the better you become, not only in your life, in your daily life, but to lead others, to support others in their journey, and to make the right choices and the right decisions. Especially for you and me, we all need to make the right decisions. Especially you run your own business, for example, another case in point. And I've got in front of me someone who is going to be a prospective client, or is going to be a client. That's the reason why we're engaged in this conversation. And there are just things where you start to feel, this doesn't feel right, or that doesn't feel right. There's just something there. You can't put your fingers on it. You don't know what it is. It is not logical. And that's the key to intuition. Intuition is about your ability to determine a situation that has nothing to do with logical or reasoning thought. Now, I have one example. It's not the one that I use in the book. As I mentioned, there are some aspects in the book. I give you my thoughts and my ideas, and then I share a story with you. I have a different story in the book, but I'll share this particular one. This is where I was going for a job interview. Now, I had been in the construction industry as a civil engineer, worked on major international and iconic projects. I got called by a headhunter, one of the top 5 at the time headhunters in the world, called me up and said, Mr. Igwe, we have an opportunity for you. There's a company. They didn't say which one it was. I went to the Netherlands, had a meeting, had a first interview. It was actually with the brand that I later joined, called Foot Locker. And the position, the title for which they were looking for someone, was actually construction and design manager. Construction and design manager. So feeding off my construction design experience and bringing that into the brand to help support the real estate process. So developing stores and expanding them. Now, as it turned out, I had the first interview, met the team, which is great. You don't always get to meet the team, but I was a senior executive. So I met the team, got to know them just in that few hours of meeting. I came away, this is intuition number 1, I came away feeling that team is good. There is nothing wrong with that team. They're good professionals. There is nothing wrong with the team. Why do they need a construction design manager? Anyway, went back. I was living in Switzerland, went back. And then a week later, they called me up and said, we'd like you to come for a second interview, which I did, which is great. Back up to the Netherlands and had that meeting. And this time I was meeting the CEO. I had another meeting with the HR director and then the CEO. And in the meeting with the CEO, we talked, and he asked me questions as one does in interviews, and I seek to understand more about the company and the business, bearing in mind I'd never worked in retail. I did not know what retail was. I did not know what retail real estate was about. And then just something in me, it just wasn't adding up. The position for which they had asked me to interview was perfectly fine. And quite frankly, I didn't need to do it. It wasn't sufficiently attractive to me as a position. But that wasn't the point. I then said to the CEO towards the end of the interview, listening to what he'd said, so why don't you tell me what it is and how you do your real estate? Now, to this day, I do not know why I asked that question. I knew nothing about real estate. I knew nothing about retail. I knew nothing about Foot Locker beyond preparing for the interview, of course. And he looked at me, and I could see for that nanosecond in his eyes, I'd asked a key question. I'd asked a key question. He didn't answer it. And I flew back. I didn't think twice about it. I just thought, strange, he didn't answer that question. But I flew back to Switzerland. And then a week later, I got the call, and I was told that I was going to be offered the position of Director of Real Estate, Construction, Design, and Maintenance. So I had the whole thing, but including real estate, which I'd never done before. Now, how I got through that and worked through that was a whole different story. That's another video, perhaps for another day. But I just had this nagging feeling in the back of my mind, something was not working. I couldn't find the answer to what I was looking for, and they weren't giving me the answer either. But I was able to ask the question, and they realized, as I realized afterwards, that's where the problem lay. It cascaded down to the construction design team, but the problem was upstream in the real estate piece. And at the time, Foot Locker had about 220 stores in 8 markets, so I had to hit the ground running. But that's a story for another day. The point is, intuition allows you to persevere, to push through, to say, there's something not right here. What is it? I don't know. Work with me, train me, help me to understand. You're talking to yourself. You're saying this, I don't know. And in the end, you've got to make a decision to go or not with your intuition. Now for me, which is why I tell that story, the change, it literally radically changed my life and put me on a different journey completely. Remember I said before about, changing your trajectory? Instead of going in this direction, perhaps construction, design, civil engineering, working on other big projects, that would have been exciting, but taking this route to go off in another direction, which has then given me an amazing, amazing career, experience and knowledge in the industry. So grow your intuition. Another time we can talk about how you develop that intuitive skill, but I'm saying now, just be aware of it. Think about it. Think about times when your intuition has made a decision for you or helped you make a decision. Think about where you didn't allow or listen to your intuition. What was the mistake there? An obvious one is you went with the wrong girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, partner. There was just something and you knew it, but you just weren't paying attention or you didn't listen to it. Intuition is a very powerful tool. Learn how to use it, develop it, hone it, improve it as the years go by, and it'll be an absolutely fantastic ally for you. I hope this has resonated for you. Please feel free to like, comment, and share, and of course, share with other people that you know who may be wanting to hear and listen to this. And I'll just wrap up by saying that somebody who I've known for about 15 years who bought the book said to me not so long ago that this chapter on intuition, he got it. He'd not been aware of it before, hadn't been using it, and he could see looking back in his life the times when he did ignore the intuition as opposed to go with it. Intuition is not there to block you. It's actually there to support and help you in your journey. So until the next time, thank you.